Well, it is Sunday, everyone, September 11th, 2022. And if you know, 21 years ago today, we were under attack by a terrorist organization. And it was our new day of infamy here in the United States. I very well remember where I was that day, as I'm sure you do too. If you were, 21 years or younger, you weren't alive or reborn that day. But otherwise, you remember exactly what happened that day. And it's a day I'll never forget. Our world changed forever. The way we did things changed forever. The airports changed forever. And we've never been the same since. Never. And we never will be. Back then we didn't have News 24. We didn't have Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and social media and text messaging on your cell phone. That wasn't even a thing. You couldn't even email from your cell phone. It was just regular talk on your cell phone. You hope you get through. And hopefully you don't go into roaming. And I did that many times. And I first bought my cell phone in December of 2000. And of course 9/11 happened in September 2001. But 9/11 changed our way of life and everything. But we didn't have technology like we do now. We had the internet, of course. It's been around for a while. And you can email and instant message, but you had to be on your computer. So that morning was a Tuesday morning. It was a beautiful day here in Virginia Beach. And I can clearly remember it was a simple day. I did video documentaries back then. I didn't do news yet. I did weather and storm chasing and documentaries. So I remember getting up, and it was a Tuesday morning, and it was a very simple one. It was my final year of college at our Bible college at Tabernacle here at Virginia Beach. And I was to go play the piano for chapel at 9:45 and then go to lunch with our maintenance guy, Mr. Brooks, who's gone on to be with the Lord. It was a simple day. Couldn't be easier. But by some divine intervention, we were in that week revival meeting with evangelist Tom Farrell, who died a year ago from cancer. So that Tuesday morning I got up, and I remember very easily getting my shower and putting on I had to wear a suit, a black suit, gray shirt, purple tie. I remember that very well. And I lived in Chesapeake back then, about 15 minutes from here in Virginia Beach. My sister and I lived at my father's house. But as I got out of the shower, my sister called me into her room, told me that the plane had hit the World Trade Center. And I had remembered the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center. So I was immediately suspicious of that. And I had remembered all the events since then, the 95, the Olympic, Oklahoma City bombing, the Atlanta bombing in 96, TWA Flight 800, which turned out to be a terrible accident, and the USS Cole on October 12, 2000, and the USS Embassy bombings in 98. So I knew of terrorism, but didn't ever think they would use a plane. But we didn't think that way. We didn't think that way. I thought we were protected by the shores, by the water. So I went on in, and my sister got ready for work, and I went in to watch Good Morning America, Charles Gibson and Joe London. They showed a picture of the burning tower. And as I was watching, I had a little bit of time before I had to go to church to play the piano for college chapel. As we're watching, I saw, as Dan Daler was talking, a news guy, a plane come in. I knew the plane was really, really close, too close, but I waited for it to come out the other side, and it did not. And I remember that huge explosion that everybody, millions of you saw live, and I yelled my sister's name. I said, Trisha. Another plane hit. She couldn't believe it. At that time, she was just going back into her room, getting ready for work. The Today Show was on. Jennifer Oberstein was talking, who had been a previous producer on the Today Show, but at that time was opening a Ritz-Carlton hotel in Battery Park in public relations. And she was crying because she had seen the plane go right over her head, second plane. Saw the explosion first. But anyway, it was awful. It was terrifying, horrific. Because we knew then we were no longer innocent. We were under attack. And I had to go on to chapel. I had to drive to chapel and remember, texting? No. Try to call my mother when you're in trouble. Couldn't get through. As I got to the college chapel, a tabernacle in Kempsville, Virginia Beach, people there who normally saw me as a jokester saw that I was very upset. And I told them what happened. And they immediately went into the school and got their kids out of school. I then went inside, and to the right was K5 with Miss Guerin, who was teaching that. And back then I taught her daughter piano. I opened the door and I told Miss Guerin what happened. I shouldn't have done that in front of the kids, but I was so shook up from it. She just could not believe it either. At that time, my cousin, Pastor Rod, who was the associate pastor back then, came around the corner and told me the following. They just hit the Pentagon. Well, Miss Guerin's husband had been to the Pentagon that day, so she just about passed out. So we couldn't get through. People were wondering what was going on with me. They saw my face. And I remember going to chapel and playing the piano at chapel. I don't remember what I played. But I remember my uncle coming in and saying, folks, we're under an emergency. America will never be the same. I didn't know what he was talking about, but I know what he's talking about now. And even 21 years later, we've never been the same. Chapel got out at 10:30, and as I got out, Lisa Judah came around the corner and said, William, the towers, they've collapsed. I said, no, what? They collapsed. I couldn't believe it. I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it. And I went over to the dean's office, Dr. Fileta. He was also a counselor. He's still there. He was a great friend of mine. And I went into his office, and he had a TV on. It had Today's Show on, and it said live. And I saw where all that smoke was over all of Manhattan, and I knew this was a new day. My uncle then brought me into his office. I was upset and emotional. Everybody was. He had a staff meeting, emergency staff meeting, and everybody was just so upset about it. But at that time, Matt Lauer broke in and he said, we now have an alert from Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh. 4th plane has crashed. So what in the world? Needless to say, that was United 93, and you know those were the first heroes of the war on terror. They were the first heroes. They overtook those terrorists, knowing they were going to die anyway, to stop hundreds of more people dying. That plane was headed towards the Capitol. Can you imagine what would have happened? And that plane had taken off an hour later than it's supposed to, or that plane would have made it to its target, because the passengers would not have known what was going on. I remember going to lunch with our maintenance guy at Golden Corral, and I could not eat. People were bringing in TVs, battery-operated TVs. We didn't have text. Remember that. We didn't have internet on our phone. You had to be home to get on the internet, to get on the TV. You didn't have that back then. After that, I went on home and slept until I had to get up to come and play the organ. For our revival. That night, there were so many people at the revival, and the choir sang, My Hope is Still Alive, and it was already in the program before 9/11 happened, and God orchestrated it that way. And that whole week, we had so many people at church every night. The rest of the week's a blur. But that day, I'm still shaken up 21 years later. And I'm so thankful for those passengers on board 993, knowing they were going to die, but they were going to do what they could to stop other people from dying from these terrorists. Since then, a lot has changed. We've had a lot of soft terrorist attacks, but they've thwarted hundreds of terrorist attacks through intelligence. And hopefully nothing like that ever happens again. And now we've got, of course, the coronavirus pandemic. The Queen died. And that's another date you're going to remember. September 8th, 2022. So I want to thank you for watching this and letting me share my story of 9/11, and still hard to talk about because we changed forever. And thank you for watching.